Have you ever experienced the paradox where the harder you pursued something, the more unattainable it became? This is a video about the game Firewatch. But first, let me tell you a quick story. In Greek mythology, there was once a man named Tantalus, who was a powerful king that ruled over mortal men and was deeply favored by the gods of Olympus. He was so liked by the gods that he was allowed to dine with them, and he enjoyed hearing their divine secrets and stories. But over time, Tantalus's hubris and curiosity grew, and in a fateful act of deception, King Tantalus killed his own son and served him as a meal to the gods, testing their infinite wisdom. But you see, the gods were not fooled, and for his crimes, King Tantalus was condemned to eternal punishment. He was placed in a shallow lake underneath the arms of a fruit tree for all eternity. But when he became hungry and reached up for the fruit, the tree branch would pull away, and the fruit would lay just beyond his reach no matter how hard he tried. And when he became thirsty, he would bend down to drink the water, but it would recede away, and he would never quench his thirst. Tantalus's name is the origin of the word tantalize, and is a reminder of the cruel paradox of trying harder for something only for it to escape further, just out of reach. In this essay, I'll analyze how this paradox presents itself in the game Firewatch, and for the purpose of this video, I'll refer to this conundrum as the Firewatch paradox. In the game, our protagonist, Henry, pursues freedom and an escape, but like Tantalus, finds it just outside of his reach despite how hard he tries. We'll look closely at how Firewatch masterfully illustrates this, turning the wilderness in all its openness and beauty into a prison that forces our protagonist to ultimately confront his deepest troubles. Since its release, now more than 8 years ago, Firewatch has continued to be a centerpiece of narrative gaming in the so-called walking simulator genre. It's likely at this point that you've already played it, and hopefully you found it just as emotionally moving as I did. On its surface, the game showcases a simplistic yet elegant art style that portrays the Wyoming wilderness beautifully. It also includes exceptional voice acting, and together they make the game an absolute pleasure to experience, even if it were nothing more than a serene hiking and map reading simulator. But at its core, this game explores a number of delicate themes involving connection, isolation, guilt, and escapism. All things that we experience in our own lives at one point or another. Now, I must say, if you haven't played Firewatch yet, and you're considering playing it, I highly recommend experiencing it for yourself before watching the rest of this video, because it does contain spoilers.
What does she have?
She's got Alzheimer's, like, dementia.
Whoa. How old was she?
Is she? She's alive. She's with her family in Melbourne, Australia. She's 43.
In this story, we follow Henry, a man who takes on the role of a Firewatch in the remote Shoshone wilderness of Wyoming. He does this because his life has been dissolved away from what he once knew due to the rapid progression of his wife Julia's early onset dementia. The role he plays now as a husband has become unrecognizable to him, twisted by circumstances well outside of his control. And in an attempt to escape the unbearable weight of this reality, he retreats into the wilderness. When we first step into Henry's shoes, the forest seems to promise him endless freedom and self-discovery. He's in a place where he can ostensibly just be, stripped of the emotional weight he's been carrying. Surrounded by vast landscapes and rugged trails that initially seem to stretch beyond view, Henry sees this openness as a chance to escape the burdens of his past. But as he traverses the Shoshone, his problems begin to surface in new ways. The wilderness, rather than offering liberation, gradually transforms into confinement of its own. As Henry ventures deeper into the forest, he encounters obstacles that limit his exploration. Rock slides, dead ends, and looming fires narrow his exploration to just a few well-beaten paths that we quickly memorize. In a way, each of these physical barriers reflects the unresolved emotions he carries with him, suggesting that no matter where he runs, he cannot escape the mental confinement of his guilt and grief. Just as he's physically prevented from exploring the wilderness on his own terms, he's also unable to escape the painful memories and choices that haunt him. And much like Tantalus, who reached for relief in vain, Henry finds himself constantly circling back to the same emotional struggles he sought to originally escape.
Well, in the meantime, you are here, and it's beautiful, and escaping isn't always something bad.
Yeah, sure.
I can't help but appreciate the irony in this setting. While the wilderness is classically romanticized as a place of freedom and adventure, for Henry it becomes a kind of surrender. Take, for example, the very act of hiking itself. It's an innately prospective activity, driven by the wonder of what lays around the next bend. But our wanderlust is always mixed with Henry's retrospective thoughts, as demonstrated by his conversations that often return to the topic of Julia and his choices. Rather than facing Julia's illness, he's run away from it, telling himself that he's, quote, getting a fresh start. But this fresh start is really just an attempt to avoid the immense pain of witnessing Julia's decline, and by leaving, he may have distanced himself physically from her illness, but he's still mentally deeply entangled in the guilt and grief that he's trying to leave behind. Perhaps one of the most tangible examples of Henry's new entrapment is the Firewatch Tower itself. Initially, it appears as a sanctuary, a refuge high above the chaos he left behind. The tower's height gives him a sweeping view and a sense of control that comes from observing the world. But it's also his new captivity. The tower is a place designed for watching, but never for engaging. Its literal purpose is to observe remotely and report one of nature's most destructive and unrelenting processes: wildfires. Processes not unlike the uncontrolled destruction of Julia's frontal and temporal lobes. It's almost as if Henry is placed there to observe his own life from a distance, unable to control it. This tower, meant for shelter, ultimately reveals itself as a kind of emotional prison, where Henry is kept away from his past, but also any real path forward. In each quiet moment in the tower, he's stripped of the distractions of daily life, forcing him to ruminate in front of his typewriter on the choices he's made. Now, let's talk about Delilah.
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
So, what's wrong with you?
Excuse me?
People take this job to get away from something. So, what's wrong?
In Firewatch, Henry's one source of human contact is Delilah, or rather, her voice, transmitted over handheld two-way radio. Her voice is his lifeline, the only voice he hears in the silence of the forest, and yet, even this connection is tempered and imprisoning. It's a relationship built on personal stories and playful banter, but devoid of any concrete presence or tangible reality.
You and I have a thing. This is real, okay? You and I really happened. And I know you didn't just take this job because you thought it'd be fun. I know whatever is going on at home is intense, but please, don't spin off into outer space. Something is happening, and it's happening to both of us, okay?
Okay.
Their conversations are often intimate, with both of them sharing pieces of themselves they might not reveal to others. But while Delilah offers him a form of companionship and fleeting escape from his inner turmoil, there's always a distance between them, a physical separation that's so obvious as we stare across the forest at her tower, never even glimpsing her silhouette. In a way, they're both confined, keeping themselves from truly connecting. And their radios, in the end, become tools of further isolation rather than of real connection.
I wish I was over there.
I wish you were too.
We could sit outside. We could talk without these radios. We could,
But there's a certain safety in this distance. They can both open up without ever fully committing, without the vulnerability that comes with being physically present. This disembodied connection is akin to Henry's emotional avoidance. He's engaging with someone, yet he's still essentially alone. This type of relationship is incomplete, and it parallels his incomplete escape from Julia. And Delilah, for that matter, is more than content to keep their relationship at arm's length, as demonstrated by her abandonment of Henry in the final scenes, leaving him with a sense of betrayal as he realizes he's really been alone this entire time. Stylistically, I love that the developers never give us the satisfaction of meeting Delilah. Despite all of the negative reviews this decision has garnered on Steam, I find it poetic, as it forces Henry to question the entire meaning of his escape to the Shoshone.
Hello? Is anybody there?
Hi. Yeah, it's me.
You're not here.
No. Don't be mad.
I am.
Well, I couldn't be out there another minute.
Not another minute. Come on.
Henry, how did you feel when you left Boulder to come out here?
Like I couldn't get here fast enough.
Exactly. That's how I've felt for the past 24 hours.
Well, I'm still mad.
In the fiery conclusion, as Henry runs through an inferno, narrowly escaping the raging firestorm, he seems to gain a true perspective on his life and his choices. Like Tantalus, who reached endlessly for water and fruit that would never be his, Henry chased the idea of freedom in the wilderness, only to find it remaining just out of reach. Through his journey, he realizes that his retreat to the outdoors had been a tantalizing illusion, promising solace while ultimately amplifying his inner turmoil. True freedom for Henry came not from the forest's allure or the escape he sought, but from within, through an acceptance of the limitations he faced and the responsibilities he had tried to outrun. The wilderness, much like Tantalus' torture, didn't offer him an escape from his problems. Instead, it served as a mirror, reflecting the truths he had long avoided. And facing them head on, Henry finally understands that peace is not in reaching for the unreachable, but in embracing the present and our place within it. If you made it this far, thank you for your time, and thank you for listening. I hope, at the very least, my thoughts made you look at this game in a different way, even if you feel my analysis is totally wrong. If you disagree with my thoughts or have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it, honestly. Please leave a comment. I promise I will respond. Thank you again, and enjoy the outdoors.
To the ponderosas, Don't need no lady, I'll marry the Mariposas. Can't waste no time in getting there.